for pre-need funerals, burials, or cremation since 1975. Curtis and Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg. Graveside service for Benny Foster, age 78 of Benson, will be Friday at 2 o'clock from Harpersville Cemetery. The Reverend Darrell Hammond's officiating. Visitation from 11:30 to 1:30 at Curtis and Son Funeral Home, Childersburg Chapel. Mr. Foster passed away July 6 at Grandview Medical Center. Online condolences at curtisandsonfunerals.com. Curtis and Son Funeral Home, Childersburg Chapel, directing. Graveside service for Charles Peter Puppy Portwood, age 75 of Sylacauga, will be this morning at 11 a.m. from Evergreen Memorial Cemetery. I'll be officiating that service. Curtis and Son Funeral Home, directing. And Carolyn Harvey, age 75 of Sylacauga, died on Wednesday at Coosa Valley Medical Center Community Funeral Home, announcing the arrangements. Mrs. Florence Boom Boomer, age 80, died Tuesday, July the 7th. Family receiving friends at Talladega Funeral Home Friday from noon until 2. Funeral service begins at 2 in the chapel. Minister David Roselle will officiate. Burial in the Hephzibah Baptist Church Cemetery, Talladega Funeral Home, directing. Mr. Timothy Wilson, age 64, died July the 8th. Community Funeral Home in Sylacauga announcing. Online condolences at communityfuneralhome.org. Visitation for Mr. Lee Bradford Stockdale Jr., age 72, is today from 3 until 7 at Terry's Metropolitan Mortuary in Talladega. Online condolences at terrysmortuary.com. Terry's Metropolitan Mortuary with the arrangements. Visitation for Mr. Abraham Shelton Jr. is today from 8 a.m. until noon at Armour's Memorial Chapel in Alexander City. Ask that social distancing is expected as you enter the facility, and face covering is required, no exceptions. Mr. Shelton's service is private but will be live streamed today beginning at 1 p.m. Armour's Memorial Funeral Home, directing. Celebration of Life service for Dr. George E. Ricker, age 94, is Saturday at 11 a.m. from First Baptist Church in Talladega, with Pastor Robert Klotz and the Reverend Jamie Baldwin officiating. Visitation at the church prior to the service, 10 until 11 a.m. Graveside service at Mount Carmel Cemetery in Bridgeport, Alabama at 3:30. Social distancing guidelines will be observed and Mass will be available. Ursery Funeral Home, Talladega, directing. Memorial service for Ray Boot Garrett Jr., age 68, is Saturday at 11 a.m. from Terry's Mortuary Chapel. There will be no visitation. Mr. Garrett died July the 1st, Terry's Metropolitan Mortuary, directing. Celebration of Life for Mrs. Rosa Yvette Barclay, age 66, is today at 11 a.m. from King's Chapel Cemetery. Sims Funeral Home, Talladega, directing. In other obituary news this morning, graveside service for Mrs. Annie Paul Cook, age 86, was held yesterday at Hillview Memorial Park in Alexander City, and Radley Funeral Home in Alexander City handled those arrangements. This obituary report this morning brought to you by Curtis and Son Funeral Home, the North Chapel on Highway 21 in Sylacauga, and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg. For pre-need funerals, burials, or cremation since 1975, Curtis and Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg.